Who doesn't want to hang out with a bureaucrat, essentially, who has low academic skills?
He's so good at writing grants. It's so hot.
Yeah, he knows. He knows how to get the venture capital. Hello, everybody. I'm Cody Troyer.
And I'm Brent Gaisford.
And we are the Hugonauts.
This week, we are talking to you about The Mercy of Gods by James S.A. the writing duo behind The Expanse. You may have heard of The Expanse. Anyway, so this is their new series, 492 pages, about 15 hours on audiobook, which is how I consumed it. Excellent I enjoyed the consuming. Okay, Cody, what's next week?
Next time, we are going to be ranking our favorite dystopian novels of all time, just in time for a certain American presidential election to remind everybody, what it's like in dystopias.
Yeah, go vote so we don't have to live in one, please. Yeah, and we've reviewed a bunch of dystopian books on the show, but we have several others we've read that we liked that we haven't even told you about yet. You get secret dystopias. As cautionary tales. Anyway, yeah. So yeah, that'll be fun.
It will be fun. And Brent, why don't you tell us a little bit more about The Mercy of Gods?
The Mercy of Gods follows a team of research scientists who are trying to survive an alien invasion. The Carryx show up and they are brutal. First thing they do is kill 1 out of every 8 people to encourage everyone else to cooperate. Then they abduct our research team and many, many other people, take them to the Carryx homeworld, and set them loose in this bizarre open-air prison with hundreds of other alien species, and tell them that if they want to survive, they need to be useful. And so our team has to decide, are they going to resist, or are they going to try to be useful? And if they were going to try to be useful, what does that even mean? The Carryx clearly thinks so differently than them. How would they even be useful if they wanted to be? So yeah, that's the setup.
It sure is, and I thought it was an excellent read. Total page turner, very James S.A. I loved it. I'm excited to see where the series goes, and it's a lot different than The Expanse, in a good way, I think.
For sure. Yeah, I also liked it quite a bit. I'm gonna give it a 3 out of 5. I liked it, but not quite as much as The Expanse. And I'm sure we'll talk more about why. But yeah, anyway, that's my take. 3 out of 5. For
sure. Well, let's get into it. Let's begin with just clarification for those who still don't know. James S.A. Corey is 2 people. It is Ty Frank and Daniel Abraham. So that's why we're going to be saying they the whole time. But are they, Brent, good writers, great writers? Let's talk about their writing first.
I think they're they're a very strong writing team with a super strong authorial voice, which I think is a good thing. I would also say though that they have a really strong voice with their dialogue, and I liked the dialogue in a lot of the scenes, and I was like, oh yeah, these feel like characters. And then I solid characters. And then as we're going a little bit more, I was like, oh, who these characters really remind me of is James S.A. Corey. They sound like James S.A. Corey talking to each other. So they definitely have a style. And I would say, and I mean that I don't know, good writers have styles. So if you liked The Expanse a lot and you like their writing style, I think you're really going to like this. So that's, yeah.
I will say though, about the characters, I feel like now, there are a couple characters I think we would both agree are pretty in relief. We have a strong sense of who they are, especially by the end of the novel. Dafid, one of the protagonists.
Yeah, he's the mainest of the main characters. Yeah.
Else, another research assistant in his group.
One that we can't talk about too much more pre-spoilers.
Right.
And Kamar. Kamar's my favorite.
So yeah, and yeah. Right. And so
Kamar's the big guy, and he has a panic attack at one point, but he's real strong, and he's gay and makes some sex. Anyway, Kamar's great. He's great.
Yeah. The comic relief kind of, but also a good character. But my point is, in longer series like this, I think the same thing of The Expanse, I think it's almost a strength for authors not to go the super literary, this is about understanding these people and making real people, and have, when there's a ton of characters, when it's like opera size like this, it's nice to have them all feel a little bit the same as you get to know them, and then expand them as characters throughout the series. Because if you come into book one and you're trying to introduce 12 characters and make them all really stand out in relief to one another, you're not going to have that much opportunity for like mystery and suspense and action. And it might just like bog readers down and trying to remember who's who. So I actually don't mind that so much, especially with the clippy dialogue style they have that keeps it fun.
Yeah. Clippy is like a really good word to describe the dialogue. Yeah, I agree with you. I liked I think as an approach, it's good. I do, they do this thing also where they give each character just kind of like one defining thing. Like David.
Right, like physical trait. Instead of being like, his brows were pulled back and he had green eyes and his long brown hair fell to his shoulders. He was wearing a silver cloak and a belt made of bison leather.
Just describe Fabio.
I don't know who I described.
Anyway,
it's mine. That's my IP, buddy.
I meant, no, I actually meant in terms of their like, sort of approach to the world. Like Kamar's one thing is when he's stressed, and they're stressed the whole book. They got abducted by aliens in an alien invasion. When Kamar gets stressed, he makes jokes. And so he's just making jokes the whole time. And the other characters are like, sometimes get a little mad at him, but like that's his thing. And that's his thing. He always does.
And that helps you identify him with that simple trick. Yeah.
It does for sure. And it works, but also like they do feel, if they do it like they did in the Expanse, like later books, we'll probably get deep dives into these characters that will like flesh them out more. Before that happens, they do feel like slightly one-dimensional, but there are a lot of them. I think you're right about that. Like, because there's so many, I think it's like okay that they're each a little bit one-dimensional. And you're right, fleshing them all out in one book would like not be possible. There's too many like quote unquote main characters to do that. So yeah, I think it's just like I think as with the clippy dialogue, like this is part of their style. They like want to keep it moving, but they want them to be differentiable. So like, here's their thing. This is this character's thing. It works. It works well.
Totally. And I derailed you, but to make the same point I was making before, I also like how they only give one physical attribute of any character, anybody who's on screen, as it were. They'll say one thing about them, and that helps you like start to make your own picture without having to like begin to imagine by rote what the author's describing. And I think that's a really clever technique that S.A. Corey uses that others don't as much, or that you don't see. I see a lot of overly described people, or I read a lot of overly described people, and I phase it out because you can't like spend that much time imagining all those things and putting them together. So I love that thing where it's just one thing and move on. So you have something to grab onto, but then they let you do the rest of the work.
Yeah. You know what I'm realizing about myself as you describe that? I never pay attention to physical descriptions. Like I didn't notice that in this book because I always gloss them over. I don't even know what the physical descriptor is for each of these. I guess I know Kamar is big.
I don't even
but that's
think
the only
about,
one I remember.
I don't even really think about when I'm reading. I guess I don't imagine people that fleshed out. They're just kind of all blobs, and I think I just know their personalities.
Do you see pictures in your head when you read?
Yeah, but not of people that strongly. Like it's like bodies that are pseudo faceless, or I don't know. It's hard to describe because it doesn't feel like that. But now that you're making me think about it, I don't really see that much detail. And I just kind of like let happen what happens in my brain, which I think is a sign of good writing, right? If you can let the story happen. I thought
you were going to say a sign of good reading. Like, well, I'm a good reader, so that's how I do it.
Just a sign of good reading. So please do it like me. No, like it's good. It's good writing if the text can wash over you and you can get it and be interested and be thinking about it and can make you think without you having to kind of like stop and make pictures happen, before you get to the next sentence and then move on, you know?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, when I sometimes feel like when people try to describe like a physical scene too much, like it can get easy to get confused and be like,
Yeah.
I actually don't know what's happening right now. Like you're doing too much.
Right. We talk about this a lot. I mean, it's just not the medium for it. Like there's plenty of mediums to show people like, this is what I see. You're seeing it now. Same with action, what have you. The other thing, quick one, that they do well is describe music, which, as you know, is a pet peeve of mine. They just they describe it instead of saying space jazz, or they were listening to Mozart still somehow. Wait,
hold on. I have a crazy music theory for you. Can I run this by you?
Yeah.
Okay. So I still listen to a lot of music from like a little bit from the 50s, but a lot from the 60s and 70s.
Okay.
And, when I was growing up, my parents played that, and that was from like their childhood. But I also think my kids growing up will have a fair amount of music from the 60s and 70s going on. Mm-hmm. I have a theory, because that was when we started having good recording equipment to like record music with high fidelity for the first time. It was like the core, did we like capture a lot of like the core musical sounds for the first time? Like, do you think there's any chance the music from like those first few decades will be timeless? Because it's kind of feeling like it's starting to be like a really long time from the 60s, but we're still all like, yeah, the Beatles are the best.
Well,
it's pretty
but
crazy.
you also have technology that, beginning in digital audio workstations of the early 90s to now, and like artificial intelligence programs that have helped along the way since way before that was a buzzword or a buzz phrase. You can restore and repair bad recordings to pristine level. And also people re-record tons of stuff. Obviously, like classical music, for example, to go back to Mozart, there are a million recordings of Mozart's music by contemporary players.
Well, that's a great example. That was like 300 years ago. So maybe in 300 years, they will still be listening to Space Mozart. You know what I mean?
I guess I'm expanding your theory to say that, all human music that we remember that, was written down or around long enough, passed down enough to be remembered by this point, I think has a chance of moving forward, and that makes total sense. But it still bugs me when somebody is lazy about the music in their novels, and James S.A. Corey is not. So great job.
Sweet. Also, great job bringing my horrible segue, just like back to the gods.
Okay, so really the only other thing to talk about, well, there's two things, but the other main thing to talk about pre-spoilers is alien humans and aliens, and then also more aliens. This book's got a ton of aliens in it, and it even begins with an alien world, Ajian, that's what it's called, right?
Yes.
An alien world where there are two divergent strands of biological life. One we are kind of...
there's like the crystal coral guy. They have like grown houses that are made from the other
it's like
tree of life, right?
Rocks have DNA, but and then there's also humans. So it starts in like a fantasy place. You thought that maybe the humans came to this planet.
Yeah, my impression was the humans colonized it many years ago, and then there was some sort of like disaster, and like, but some people survived, and now they've been living there for like a really long time, disconnected. That was my impression.
And mine was that these two strands of life co-evolved on this planet, the humans later than the rock stuff. And one of us is definitely right. I don't think that's like up for interpretation. I think we just so let us know if you know. Or maybe we just have to find out later. Anyways,
in general, they just didn't say a lot about it though. I think like learning more about the history of Ajian is going to be like one of the things we get like teased in little bits through the rest of the series. It feels like,
which is going to be super cool, I'm sure. But
yeah,
so we start with
like, do. Have they said yet?
I don't know.
I'll get on the.
You get on that while I'm saying. So we start with alien humans basically on an alien planet with a different form of life. And then we also get the Carryx invading, so that's more aliens. And then when they're at the homeworld, they run up against, I mean, they see that there's tons of other alien races on the Carryx world as well. And so it's this really cool size of space opera that feels very scientific still. The biology is strong and everything is science fiction, but it has this fantasy bend to it where it's not the traditional kind of the aliens invade Earth or we invade their star system or we run into them like First Contact type of novel. It's very rich with species right away, and I think that sets it apart from a lot of other alien books.
Yeah, there's
in an
so
interesting
many
way.
species. Yeah, it's fun. Yeah, I mean, it is a First Contact book in that the Carryx show up and just immediately invade and do terrible stuff. But yeah, then it branches out like a lot.
Right. Wait, okay, how many books?
They say 3. This is going to be a trilogy.
Oh, that's too bad. I want 9. Although I will say, I was bummed. This is the first time I've ever read a series where I read the first book before the other ones were out, and that is a real bummer.
Yeah, I mean, at best, we have like 2 more years to wait for the rest to be out, right? And it's probably more than that.
Yeah.
You know what I was thinking about recently?
What's that, Brent?
The hell did Peter Jackson make each of those Lord of the Rings movies in 1 year? They're each so good. How did he do it?
I think they were pre-pro and shooting. I don't think it was 1 year. I think that they probably the same as a lot of modern novelists. I'm sure S.A. Corey are on the same trend. They're not starting the second one as soon as the first one's published. It's probably been in the works for a long time, and they're laying out a schedule where they can finish 2 and 3 over the concurrent years so they can release them. Like Lord of the Rings. They're not.
Anyway,
they,
I'm still.
They didn't shoot Fellowship of the Ring, release it, and then begin Two Towers.
Sure. Okay. All right.
Yeah, it was it's a whole plan. You just got to plan ahead. You got to do good planning. Okay, aliens. Yeah, we'll talk about more later, I guess. But pre-spoilers, I love the Carryx idea of the universe, which is, I mean, they're basically, their whole philosophy is that which is, to quote the text. But they mean it in the mean way of that.
They're not space bros. Yeah, they're not like, oh, whatever will be. It's fine, man. Like, they do not mean that. They mean like,
very literally.
I subjugated you, and so therefore you're slaves. Sorry, but that's how it is.
And that's the right way the universe works. And then, but what was the other quote that we both
they
loved?
have that thing with this stick where they say, like, you humans use sticks for tools. So, you have the exact words.
Yes, like what you did with a tree branch is what we do with you. Why me is not a question that the universe ever answers. Like that's a cool, it's a really cool philosophy.
It is. It's also just like terrible might makes right, powerful nationism. But anyway,
that's true. That's also true.
But
there's
part
2 sides.
Yeah, the part that I do think it, like, sort of to follow on from the Sparrow, our last book, like. The Sparrow makes you think a lot about, like, philosophically, like, is the way these alien species treat each other okay? And what's interesting about that is, like, the way we treat animals, like, the way we think it's okay to treat animals, like, has changed over our history. And, you know, I don't know. Maybe we'll think it's not right to make axe handles in 500 years. I think probably not.
Well, I think that's one of the interesting things to think about. Totally. It's like, oh, okay, a plant is living too, so that's a point. It was just interesting to think about that. And I mean, the latter part of it is what interests me the most. It's like, why me is not a question that the universe ever answers. I don't think that has anything to do with might make right. That's just a cool philosophy.
Yeah, for sure. Well, that's like back on the chill bro side of it, which is like,
right.
You can be pissed off if you want, but like thinking it's unfair doesn't change it.
Que sera, sera. Shikata ganai, to go back to Expanse, I suppose. We'll use the Japanese version of that. Speaking of the Expanse, Is this better or worse than The Expanse? It's a dumb
I
question, but it'll get clicks.
yeah. I think it's a little worse. I think The Expanse is just like a little bit more driving. This actually also is like super duper high stakes, but I just was a little bit more gripped by The Expanse. I thought there's a little bit more like action. And I don't mean that in terms of like you have to have gunfights or whatever. I just meant like there's more sections of the book that it's like, oh, they're in a tense situation. So yeah, I like The Expanse a little bit more, I think. Yeah, what about you?
Interesting. I'm, I loved The Expanse too. So I think it's my point with the question is to point out it's a silly question. They're very different. I think this, but first I'll say I might end up liking this better just because I like the direction they're coming from. It's so fresh, and there's no tropes of like rebels, pilots, space pirates, military leaders. It's all researchers, and there's a lot of science, and that the conflict dynamics are different, and the conflicts are resolved in different ways, which I found really refreshing. But in general, yeah, I think the success here is that it's a lot different than The Expanse. Authors aren't able to make something that's that feels like them still, but is very different very often, and I think that's very impressive.
Yeah, for sure.
Very,
Yeah,
very, 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 very.
All right, should we do similar books?
Let's do similar books, and we'll post-spoil this baby. The first one is the most kind of on the nose, and that's Shards of Earth, which is book 1 in the Final Architecture trilogy by Adrian Tchaikovsky. Awesome space opera. Humans way away from Earth, tons of alien species, lots of cool conflicts and stuff going on, lots of cool alien species, as you might imagine.
Is the Earth
being
blown
a
up?
Tchaikovsky?
Is that why it's the Shards of Earth?
Yeah, correct.
Tragic.
Yeah.
R.I.P.
And so
He loves that. He loves blowing the Earth up.
I know, Adrian. And I haven't read the other one. I think 2 more are out. I forget, but I really like the first one. I got to get on that. What else do you have?
I'm going to go with Startide Rising by David Brin, which is part of his Uplift series. There's like an original trilogy and then several more. Anyway, the Startide Rising is technically the second book, but you definitely can read it first. Some people really like the Uplift War, the next book as well. But anyway, I'm a big Startide Rising guy. That's my recommendation. There's so many aliens, and there's actually a lot of overtones with slavery too. The deal with Uplift is like they're trying to, if you're an alien species, if you help a species like achieve sentience, then you get to enslave them for like, I don't know, a ridiculous amount of time.
It's like indentured servitude. That's slavery. Really.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of like similar themes of like slavery and tons of aliens. It's just fun. Great book. Yeah, I really liked it. Yeah, and we actually interviewed David Brin on the show, one of our early episodes. So
yeah,
check that
really
out.
Fun.
If you want to hear
really
from
fun
the
talk
man himself.
Really fun talk with him. And then I guess the last one, The Expanse, yes, but that's obvious. So I'll do another one. Fire Upon the Deep by Werner Vinge. Again, same
Great
things.
aliens.
You got Scrode Riders, like top.
The Tynes.
Scrode Riders and Tynes are like top 5 fun,
Aren't there
cool
some
aliens.
like murderous butterflies too? Can't remember what they're called.
Yeah. I can't remember what they're called either, and there were. So yeah, I agree on all that. Anyways, you wanna tell us what happens in the rest of The Mercy of Gods, Brent?
So turn aside here if you don't want spoilers for the end of the book. Otherwise, here we go. Here's what happens. So they're assigned a task by the Carryx to they're given a berry from one planet and a turtle from another, and are told they have to engineer the berry so that the turtle can eat it. So doing some science on that, and then these monkeys come into their lab, blow the lab up. Anyway, they get into a conflict with these monkeys because it turns out the monkeys have been assigned the same task as them. The Carryx don't give 2 shits. They're like, oh, you can't protect yourself.
Make yourself useful.
Exactly. Yeah. So they realize they have to not only be useful to Carryx, but also like take care of their own needs. They kill the space monkeys and prove their dominance. They get a translator box, which is very useful, and then they use that to find a bunch of other humans. So now they've found all these other human groups, and they're immediately plugged into this like rebellion plot. They're going to try to kill some Carryx, and they know it's futile. These other the rest of the humans, but they want to do it anyway because they're just pissed off. And so David, our hero,
David.
David. Daffod. Old Daffodil has a big choice to make about whether he's going to like narc on them to the Carryx, basically, because he thinks he's been like studying the Carryx, and he really strongly believes that if they have this pointless uprising, even though they won't really damage the Carryx will like kill everyone back on Ajian. So he's like, we can't do that. Even though we're angry, like we have to serve them. So he rats them out. Yeah. And the Carryx like reward them for that basically and say like, we'll let your planet live. You can keep serving us. And that's kind of the setup for the future books. That's like the big last conflict. So yeah.
Right. And there's also another plot running that we didn't talk about at all because it would spoil a ton of stuff. But from the beginning of the book, there's some entity called the Swarm that's in one of the humans that then transfers itself to the research group in a different person who I forget the name of. It. Well, Else is second. Is she? I thought Else was the third in the
research.
chain.
Else is the first one in the research group.
Okay, it wasn't. It wasn't John Dicia or whatever.
No, the other woman was from a different research group. Yeah. Anyway.
Okay, but the name was John Dicia, correct?
I think it's Amir, but yeah.
Okay. So so this Swarm is in it. We don't really know how it works or what it does, but it's clearly
it's nanobots or like a virus, something anyway. Yeah.
Yes. And it merges with the host personality. It slowly overtakes the host, but it's either a weapon or is the enemy of the Carryx. So you also get a little point of view chapters along the way of the Carryx trying to deal with their enemies. So it's setting up the larger arc of like, what might the humans do in this galactic war between these terrifying giant things that look like Duriel from Diablo 2.
Is that the Carryx? And the space lobsters?
The Carryx, yeah. The space lobsters or boss of Act 2 in Diablo 2. And this Swarm entity, whatever it is. So it's setting up that as well. We get both things.
Yeah, if I were to bet on James S.A. Corey, but the Swarm guys are also kind of bad, but we'll find out. We really didn't learn very much about them. It feels like learning about that like broader conflict will be like the big multi-book reveal of this series, sort of like the proto-molecule was in the Expanse.
Yes. The interesting thing about the Swarm, though, is that they kind of merge with the host or any hosts they've been a part of. So
their the Swarm personality persists.
Yeah, the Swarm grows to love David.
Yeah, the Swarm of nanobots thinks old Tom Daffodil's so hot. Yeah.
You couldn't even get through that sentence because you think the same thing.
I mean, dude, who doesn't want to hang out
Swoony,
with
who doesn't want to hang out with a bureaucrat, essentially, who has low academic skills.
Grants. So good at writing grants.
He knows. He knows how to get the venture capital. Which I guess, great transition there. He's a fascinating character, and one of the things I loved about this book is that he solves the conflict at the end. Through his skills, his administrative experience, because on the research team, he's a minor research assistant. So he spends all of his time getting to know the planet and seeing the Carryx and trying to figure out.
He's like studying their administrative system to figure out like what they want them to do.
Yeah, because they won't tell you. So at the end of the book, he breaks the arm of the lead researcher when the researcher stands up to protest something for the Carryx. And that's what finally shows the Carryx that the humans can be responsible for themselves, which is what they wanted all along. So it's a very interesting way, I think, to neutralize the conflict of the novel. And it's also, the ending is also so fabulously gray. It doesn't save you in a narrative way. It doesn't do the thing where it's like, yeah, obviously we can't rebel because they're way stronger. So we need to give these people up. But also, like, our rebellion worked and it was fine. You know, there's no
No, all
saving.
those
It's
people just
very
get killed.
realistic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Um,
tough.
so great ending. And I loved that. The
I
administrator
did
wins.
think the reveal. So we get all these scenes of him like wandering around the prison and trying to figure out what's going on, and we're told he's like studying them, and it just felt a little strange to me that his big intellectual reveal at the end is like, oh, they want us to like do the science project that they gave us. It's like, yeah, they told you to do the science project. Like, what do you like? It was like framed as a big reveal, and it was like, oh, you mean they want you to do the thing that they told you to do? Like, yeah, that's it.
I thought it kind of worked because there's a little bit of like, that's not all they want. They also want the humans to work within their system and prove that they can do that.
That's true.
But they also do out the science project. But I also thought the entire time, I was like, oh, the science, halfway through, I was like, the science project doesn't matter. They have to figure this out. And then it does. So it was a little bit of a twist in that way, because it was kind of like face value. It was like subverting the face value,
Right. Yeah,
But,
for sure. Anyway, yeah, they got the turtle to eat those berries.
I
It's
also
big
have
science.
to, I know it's minor, but I got to throw out the word of the day, which is moiety, which I thought was so cool. I thought it was
Is
invented.
that a real word? Yeah, I thought it was made up for sure.
Yeah. So they call the Carryx, they have the different aliens, like they have their moieties. So the guy in charge, the Carryx in charge of the humans is the librarian in charge of the human moiety of the Carryx. And then there's the monkey moiety of the Carryx, or whatever the other species are. And there's a ton of definitions for this word, moiety. But number 4, I think, is probably what they're going for, which is a distinct part of a large molecule. And then in other meanings, it's each of 2 parts into which a thing is or can be divided. So, or a part, a portion, especially a lesser share. So
Okay,
all
so
these
it's like
all these
the
ways to
part
use
of the
moiety.
system.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I think that's just a cool word that totally floated past me, as like, oh, I guess they call that the Carryx language.
I wish I was a communist. Like, I feel like if I wanted to yell at people and call them collaborators, I could call them like moieties instead. You moiety.
Moiety. Moiety.
But I don't call people collaborators a lot. Maybe I should.
Yeah, you also don't exude a lot of communist attributes.
Well, it's because I haven't been calling out the collaborators, dude.
Yeah, okay, that
We
does
gotta
seem
start
fun.
there.
Yeah. Well, anyways, I loved this novel. It's fantastic, and I'm glad we finally get to do something that's like super current, other than our Nebula
Yeah, very
and Hugo
hot off
episodes.
the presses. Yeah.
And I hope everyone reads it.
For sure. Yeah, it was fun. Yeah, hope y'all enjoy it and keep reading, everybody.
All right, later, man.